Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of Speaker Stories. Today, we are joined by Brian Ruskin. Brian is a graduate of the University of Pittsburgh, where he did his undergraduate degree in 2001. He received a PhD in geological sciences from Cornell in 2006. He's held various exploration positions with Shell, QEP, Whiting over the last 15 years or so. He's currently a research associate at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, a senior exploration advisor at Applied Stratigraphics, and a consultant at Strategic Decisions Group. Brian, welcome to Speaker Stories, and thanks for your time. How are you doing today?
Absolutely, Ben. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Great. First of all, I just wanted to kind of talk about where are you from? Where do you come from?
Right. Well, so I'm born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and so you already mentioned I did my undergraduate there, and the rocks around PA are you've got a lot of coals and you've got a lot of low hills from the Appalachian orogeny, but not a lot of inspiration in terms of the great outcrops. We usually would have to drive somewhere for a geological field trip, drive to some road cut out of state to see some interesting rocks. So you get kind of sick of looking at shales and coals all the time in PA. But that's where I'm from. I moved up to upstate New York, as you said, for Cornell for grad school, and the Devonian shales there are another wonderful thing to behold. And then down to Houston for the beginning of my work career. And then the last 8 years I've been in the Rocky Mountains. So I've been based out of Denver. So no shortage of geologic wonders to behold.
Great. Yeah, I'm a Midwesterner, and so I definitely know what it's like. I mean, we had some outcrops in Wisconsin, but we definitely had to drive usually very far to get to the mountains or the best
Right.
outcrops when I was in school. So, how did you get into geology? What triggered that?
Yeah, my geology interest was a little bit backdoor. I knew I wanted to do something with science growing up. I always was interested in science and art. And so in retrospect, I can see how that's a nice overlap because there's so much creativity involved in geology and geological sciences. I probably, like a lot of kids, grew up wanting to do something like an astronaut or work with dinosaurs. And I started to take this fairly seriously when I was in high school. I actually worked at the Carnegie Museum of Natural History in Pittsburgh, and I did some volunteer work with their paleontology department. So that kind of gave me the first exposure to what do paleontologists really do. This isn't just Jurassic Park and digging up dinosaurs every day. That's part of it, but I did work for them for a while, and some folks I talked to sort of steered me towards geology as one of the background sciences that you could utilize, certainly in terms of understanding Earth history as context for what paleontologists do. And there's lots of roots into paleontology, but it's not a very common undergraduate degree, right? It's fairly specialized. And so I sort of started as geology to see like, let's see how this goes. I'm interested in it. I've always enjoyed the outdoors. I've always enjoyed looking at rocks. And I was really pretty quickly hooked. It was an amazing exposure. I had not had much of an earth science background in high school or independent research. So I just loved it. And I started to sort of gravitate towards soft rocks and stratigraphy as my main areas of interest. And it grew from there.
Okay. And what did you study for your PhD?
Right. So just as I was enamored by the many opportunities or many different pathways you could take within geology, when you come down to specializing, I had some other more difficulty making that decision. Because now you're looking for specialization and you're looking for where do I go where I have the best people, the best research teams, the strength of the advisor, the strength of the department, lots of things to consider. As I said, I sort of was interested in soft rocks. My field work in Wyoming field camp sort of made me think that was the way I wanted to go. But it wasn't really until I decided that I was going to go to Cornell and work with Terry Jordan, who has done her amazing career in foreland basin analysis and stratigraphy and paleoclimatology. It wasn't until I got there that I really started to focus in that sequence stratigraphy was my primary focus. But stratigraphers, as RMS SCPM will know, and members will know, is a bit of everything. So that's
Sure.
even better because you get to use a variety of tools.
And how did you get into oil and gas from your PhD? Did you get recruited? What path took you there?
Yeah, it was recruitment. Various oil companies would come to the campus and interview us, and I was fortunate enough to one summer get an internship. And this was with Shell exploration in Houston, Texas. So I went into that with, again, wide eyes of not knowing what really an oil and gas geologist did. And I was ensconced in a regional framework studies team. And this was amazing because now you had, instead of in academia, where I found that within the department, maybe a couple people were working together on a project or working on, they were in a shared field. It was very siloed. I found that in oil and gas, there was actually now a number of people that were working on the same problem, coming at it from different angles, but all with the same goal in mind. So it was like one big, at least that team was one big, exciting research division where creativity was really welcomed, big picture views were encouraged. And so that was what got me into oil in the first place. I did another summer with Shell, and that led to a full-time hire. So it kind of changed my perspective. I thought I might do academia forever, but I found enough interest in the oil and gas field to stick with that for a number of years.
Yeah, so when you went from your internship to full-time status at Shell, was it a similar kind of collaborative R&D group, or what kind of stuff did you work on in the beginning of your career?
Yes, it was. It was my first assignment full time was with that framework studies team, which over the years became much more focused on unconventional resources. These were the early days. I started in 2006.
Okay.
Think of that era, sort of beginning stages of shale exploration for resource plays. The team makeup and focus changed a bit, but I was always with a very big picture exploration view, sort of feeding the funnel of new opportunities. You get exposed to business development, get exposed to various specialties that go into a new opportunity evaluation. It's not just stratigraphy, it's not just tectonics. And so I was working with petrophysicists and engineers. Yeah, and I stayed in that group for about 5 years, and then started to move towards more into asset development, still with an exploration slant to it, but much more focused on let's look at this asset that we've purchased that your team provided. Now let's make it work.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's really fun. And then moving through to QEP and Whiting, what were you doing similar kinds of things as you navigated your career through those companies, or?
Similar, but with a different focus. I think that there's a difference in mindset and in pace between a super major like Shell and independent companies like we have here in Denver and in the Rockies. So you wear more hats.
Yes.
And so I was, yes, an exploration geologist for both of those companies, but you learn by doing, often because there's less staff, the needs and the timelines are compressed. So it's very exciting, a different pace. And I think that I learned as much in those companies as I ever did with a major like Shell, just because I had, there were lots of projects going on, from front-end exploration to asset optimization to production. So there was you'll hopefully get something out of this, but I think it was a great way to put on different hats and to develop different skill sets like basin modeling, work more closely with petrophysics, and get into even to data analytics, which is certainly something that all geologists are aware of now, but a few years back it was a bit more novel. So I was that opportunity.
Yeah, yeah, and I find it really fun to actually kind of test some of your ideas too. And I'd imagine that smaller companies, it was probably easier to actually do that than a super major like Shell. Making an assumption there, but
Yeah, it can be. It can be definitely. You can work on things, but on the other hand, the bottom line always is something you have to keep in mind.
Yes.
So while a company like Shell may have the means, or at least they did have the means to purchase some more risky assets, I would say, or say, well, we will figure them out. And if this doesn't work, well, we have a larger portfolio. A small company's basin and play portfolio can be very small, and it can sometimes compress, or it can be very dictated by market conditions. So there isn't a whole lot of time or money to waste on purely academic things. So that was a good learning I actually had moving from a major company to an independent. Was we really focused on the business significance of what you're doing. The geologic wonder and the academic pursuit is great, but does it move the needle? Is often what I heard. Is it going to make material impact for this company?
Yes.
Let's move on.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Um, okay, and then tell us about your current situation, how you've navigated from oil and gas into an advisor at Applied Stratigraphics and the consulting you're doing. How did you make that transition?
The transition was a little bit forced on me because
Okay.
I was in the industry, oil and gas industry, for over 15 years, and I had been through about 10 layoff rounds. And the cyclic, commodities-driven business, this is expected, and this happens, maybe with a bit more frequency than I would have liked. And so eventually, my time was up, and I was laid off. So um, my my choices were to be desperate about looking for a new oil and gas geology job, when during the height of the COVID pandemic and low oil prices, this was not an easy sell,
Yeah.
not a lot of positions, or to be intentional about what did I want to do, which would appeal to my passions about geology, would allow me room for growth, and would really be marketable. And so the way I approached this was I sort of thought about what are the things that appeal to me about my job, about geology, that doesn't necessarily mean making a resource map. And a lot of that came down to teaching. A lot of that came down to evaluation on a big scale before putting it into context for a prospect. And a lot of it also came down to sort of strategy, how you manage change, how you manage risk and uncertainty, which are always part of our business. And so that took me in two directions. One was carbon sequestration, which is the topic of the workshop, or of the webinar in April. And the best way to fulfill that pivot was to design a course. So I took it upon myself to learn as much as I could and design ways of evaluating reservoirs for oil and gas, for geologic sequestration. And so a lot of this was analogous to what I had done in the past, but a lot of it was new because of different questions to ask. The consulting work was something that was a bit more peripheral, because it's not always about oil and gas, or about geology. It's more about the risk and the uncertainty. And in my career, I've always tried to incorporate those, whether it be by through modeling, through economic evaluation, try to give constraints on what we don't know and what will be the impact on that. There's so much we don't know in geology. So that sort of was comfortable to me. The company that I work with for that as a consultant is Strategic Decisions Group, which specializes in decision quality. And part of that is analysis of the impact of uncertainty on your bottom line. So you can see there's a bit of overlap on these. Then working with Applied Stratigraphics, I get to fulfill my teaching interests, teaching online courses on exploration, on evaluation methods of conventional and unconventional reservoirs, and sprinkling in a little bit of the uncertainty, bias mitigation, and making pitches for regional understanding before focusing in too much on the details.
How are you navigating as these kind of? I'm assuming that they weren't always online; that they were in person before 2020.
Sure.
What kind of strategies have you employed to convey some of the important things that need to be seen with in person in
Right.
the online world?
Yes. So an in-person course, often I'm fairly low tech about this. I often use paper maps and sort of paper handouts. And why do we do that rather than a software? Well, number one, because a lot of the projects and the exercises in the courses are collaborative. And so it's nice to have people gathered around the same data set and not just have one person driving. Second is that when you have a map in front of you and you're forced to make an interpretation with your pen or pencil, you're really more cognizant, I feel, of where is the data that where's the uncertainty, where's the density. You have to make a decision. So in an in-person course, that's how I would run it. Online, of course, you're not there to facilitate that. And the adjustment is a little bit like, well, let's get that map, those exercises and the maps out ahead of time. So if people want to print them out, they can. Always ask them, bring your color pencils. Hey, if you want to do it on with a graphic software, if you want to just open the PDF and draw on your screen, that's fine as well. But it's not going to be around this particular software. That is also a functional need because depending on the client, they may or may not have a given software. So I just want everybody to have this sort of the same base maps, and then how you work it is up to your creativity and your expertise.
Cool. Yeah, it's a good way to do it. Any career mentors along the way that have helped you navigate your career?
There have been so many, throughout academia and my career. And I guess I just wanted to say, in terms of more recently, some folks that really helped me with my geologic and career development. It was Mark Longman, who many folks from the Rocky Mountain CPM will know. Mark is an expert on carbonates and on many other things geologically related. So Mark has helped me a lot with appreciation of details, appreciation of different senses of scale, and also just the maintaining geologic curiosity. And then for career development, a friend of many in Denver also is Steve Leeds. And he's helped me a lot with sort of following my passion, particularly when you're thinking about pivoting a little bit out of your comfort zone. So both Mark and Steve have been great resources. I guess I would tell everybody in terms of looking for mentors is just reach out to your network. You never know who they might recommend. That might be someone that can help you if you're looking to make a change or just to iron out some issues. That's the way you learn and grow, to help each other out, and sort of it's a fun process, I think, sort of learning what people's expertises are and where one conversation leads to. So
yeah, and at the minimum, you get to know somebody that you didn't know before. So
absolutely.
I agree, maintaining that network is so important. So yeah, that's really great. Great. So what keeps you fascinated about geology? What's
yeah,
anything you want?
Well, I touched on it a little bit in my career development, career trajectory. I talked about the creativity, and I was an artist as well as a geologist in my undergrad, and I still dabble with art. But I've always found that if you can think sort of in four dimensions, you've got it set, right? And not that everybody that's a geologist or a geoscientist or an engineer has to have some sort of other side of their brain thinking, but it helps. So I've really enjoyed whenever I go to a new outcrop or to a new field area, just sort of like, well, who's been here before and what do they think? That's just doing the research. But there's a good chance that you're the first person to be in a place to have your thoughts or your goals in mind. That's research. Yes, you're building on what's been done before, but you're also you're trying to apply a new slant to it, because we never know with full certainty. So I love the creativity that's involved. I love the fact that there is so much unknown. It's not. This may be unsatisfying for some folks that are more quantitative, but there's always going to be that range, and that's allows for that difference in interpretation. I mean, we're not looking for necessarily one number.
Sure.
Usually it boils down to that. We want to know what's the right answer, what we think is right. But I like to be able to talk about the uncertainty and the impact of that. I'll give you for an example. So if you went to an outcrop with a field trip and kind of let people mingle for a while and look at the rocks, and then, well, what are you thinking? Well, hopefully you're getting a variety of opinions. because people are looking at different scales, people have different backgrounds and expertise that they're bringing to it. And then there's the fact that we just may not know what's going on. You're looking at a snapshot of time and you're looking at an incomplete record. So that is all to say, I really like the uncertainty. I like the overlap between science and art. And I like that we don't take it for granted that we know everything, because it is the cliche, of course, is, the record is a book with many pages ripped out. So
Yeah. Yeah. I always say I'm trying to be less wrong.
correct. Yes. You're precisely right. That's exactly wrong.
Yeah. And so you mentioned the art, and is that a piece behind you that you did? Is that
It is, yeah.
some of your
It's
artwork? Cool.
supposed to be the Grand Canyon,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, it looks great. That's awesome. And how did you combine those in your did you combine them in your undergrad? Because I saw that it was you both had art and geological sciences on there. What?
yeah, they were fairly separate paths when I was doing them, and it was a fun break because you could go from studying physics and structural geology and mineralogy on part of the day, and then go and make a sculpture or a splash acid painting on another. So that really just, those were separate paths. But as I developed in my career, I saw more and more utility for, again, having that 4D thinking. So being
Yeah.
able to create a cross section or create a gross depositional model that kind of looked like something. Mapping, we're all doing the mapping, but also the visualization of what something looks like through time and space. I just want to give a quick plug that the project that I've been involved in a little bit at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science involves paleo mapping, and there's some really wonderful people there, led by James Hagedorn with Bob Ringels as advisors, that are looking at that very thing, trying to create beautiful maps of Earth's history, or basically the history of the Rocky Mountains, centered on Colorado, through time, in a way that the lay public will understand it. Just like you'd look at a Google satellite image and say, I see my house, or I see the city. Well, can I show you a picture from 260 million years ago and have that sort of same understanding of what am I looking at here? Oh, I see volcanoes, or I see a sea, or something that's not what I look out the window now, but it makes sense in that context. So the visualization piece is more and more important as I evolve in my career, I think.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What a fascinating project, and I can't wait to see the result of that from the museum. All right, so Brian, do you want to tell us a little bit more about what applied stratigraphics does?
Sure. Yeah. So Applied Stratigraphics is based here in Westminster, Colorado, and has a team of excellent professionals, actually around the U.S. and in Europe, that basically do consulting, geologic consulting, as well as online course content, on-site consultation, core viewings, and a plethora of field trips. So really, they have a specialist or several in almost any aspect of geology that you could think of. So my role there is, as exploration advisor, is to sort of look at, teach folks about the holistic understanding of basins, plays, and prospects for both conventional plays or unconventional plays. And that's kind of what I do. That's my little niche. But really, if you go to the Applied Stratigraphics website, you'll see there's many courses you can take, both online and in person. Lots of field trips to fascinating locales. And really, it can be catered towards the needs of the client as well.
Excellent. And then can you also tell us a little bit more about the Strategic Decisions Group and where we can find out more and what they do?
Yeah, right. So Strategic Decisions Group, or SDG, has been around about 40 years. They were created out of folks that were studying and teaching at Stanford University. So they've got a long history of being practitioners and originators of something called decision quality. And this is a framework for making decisions where you judge as you go. You judge how you frame the problem, how you've chosen your alternatives, how you've defined the values that are important to you, how you've assessed the information that you have, you've evaluated it, and then you've committed to act. So this framework provides structure to very difficult organizational and strategic decisions. Not the decisions like for making breakfast that everybody, what do I want for breakfast? Everyone does that, but ones that cost billions of dollars, lots is relying on it. What we try to do is share it with people that you can make 100% quality decision based on this framework and feel good about it, regardless of the outcome, because the outcome is uncertain. Just like in geology, we don't know with perfect certainty the future. We can help you analyze the data and give you a range of here's how good it could be, and here's also the downside risk. And now you're armed with that information to make a more informed decision. Otherwise, many folks will make decisions without that context in mind or without that framework, and you could get lucky. People make rash decisions and get lucky, and then the people can do everything right, and it's still a rainy day. Bad things happen, but you can still feel confident you've done the right approach towards the decisions. So we work with energy clients, we work with life sciences and pharmaceutical clients. We're branching out here locally into aerospace in Colorado because that's a huge field, lots of potential. And so, the consultants around the world for STG utilize decision quality and analytics to help with economic and decision and strategic modeling.
Wow, that's really exciting. Okay, and one last thing for you. What do you like to do for fun besides artwork? What do you do in your off time?
Right. Well, lately the fun is I have a 7-month-old daughter, so a lot of the fun is just watching her learn and grow every day. So that's a wonderful pastime. It doesn't leave a lot of time for other hobbies, but I do a few things. I do a music podcast with a friend. We just review records and put it out on the internet and see what happens. I do a little bit of music production and then a little bit of art when I get a chance.
Okay.
Then my wife and I love to hike and be outdoors when we can.
Awesome. Well, fantastic. Well, you can catch more of Brian on April 26th through RMS SCPM. We have our monthly webinar. Our webinars are always the last Tuesday of every month. Brian's is April 26th, and it's titled The Reservoir Evolution for Carbon Sequestration, Ensuring Capacity, Injectivity, and Containment. You can find out more about our webinars and sign up at rmsscpm.org. Brian, thanks so much for being here and for talking to me today. It's a great discussion, and we look forward to talking to you more on April 26th.
Absolutely, Ben. Thanks for the invite. I'm just happy to share a little bit, and I'm looking forward to discussing about carbon sequestration, geologic reservoirs on interest.
Yeah, can't wait. All right, have a great day.
All right, you too.
Thank you.